It's the million-dollar question right now. What should Canada expect when Donald Trump takes over the reins of the White House next month? From the threat of 25% tariffs to joking about making Canada another American state. The incoming president has already set Ottawa on its heels, and he hasn't even been sworn in yet. What kind of a ride could Canada be in for? Joining us now with his final interview as U.S. Ambassador to Canada is our friend David Cohen. Nice to see you, Ambassador.
Oh, thanks. It is a pleasure to be here, and I think that introduction sort of captures the bittersweet nature of the 43 days I'm about to enter into, which is to leave this country that I've really come to love and respect, and walking away, at least in this role, from a lot of people who I've developed friendships with, including this show and you.
Well, thank you. We have so appreciated having you on. I always love talking to you. You have such a way of making your point in a diplomatic fashion. And
which is pretty good, because even though I'm allegedly a diplomat, I'm not really a diplomat. So
that's
somehow
true.
I picked up enough to be viewed as diplomatic. I view that as a great success.
Well, and it's, all of these ambassador appointments are political, which is part of why your term is over, because there's an incoming new U.S. president. And of course, he's captured a lot of Canadians' attention, as he has around the world, but in particular for Canada, with the threats about the 25% tariffs on everything. Starting on his first day in office, you know the Canadian economy, you know the American economy. What kind of effect would those tariffs have?
So I will answer that question, but I just want to make sure I say up front how careful I want to be and need to be, because I don't speak for an incoming administration. I speak for the current administration in the United States today. As a factual matter, I think I would say that a 25% tariff on all goods imported in the United States by Canada would have significant economic impacts, as many of President-elect Trump's advisors have pointed out. They are potentially inflationary, given the integrated nature of the supply chain between the United States and Canada. It has potentially significant negative impacts on United States employment, on United States manufacturing, on United States jobs, and certainly on Canadian employment, jobs, and GDP growth. But I want to caveat that comment by noting, and this is not a criticism, I think every word you said is right, but all we've seen about this policy is a one-paragraph Truth Social post. And that's not a full policy. It doesn't capture necessarily what the tariffs would look like. You don't impose tariffs by social media posts.
That issue with the border and fentanyl and the illegal crossings, we know objectively that the numbers tell us they've gone up significantly. The number of people crossing from Canada into the U.S. illegally and the amount of drugs. Has that also been a concern for you as ambassador? So
it has been a concern, and the way the Biden-Harris administration, the way I have dealt with those issues, with Canada and with Mexico, quite frankly, where both of those problems are significantly larger and of more concern than they are of Canada to U.S. migration of people and drugs, is through conversation, is to identify those problems, and is to sit down with Canada, say what are the causes of this, why is this happening, and what can we do to address it. And we have moved some of the levers here that control the security of the border, that control what, and I'm going to use a different term than illegal immigration. I'm going to say irregular migration, illegal immigration, and contacts by American law enforcement, primarily Customs and Border Protection, with nationals crossing from Canada into the United States. Similarly, we have made some progress primarily in the law enforcement information sharing and cooperation context that we believe is having an impact on the importation of drugs. Not mentioned in the President-elect's social media post is a problem we have with sex trafficking, between Canada and the United States, and also not mentioned, but the product of conversations, is the problem that Canada has with the importation of illegal guns from the United States to Canada.
Can you tell us a bit about that sex trafficking problem? Because I think it's something a lot of people are very concerned about, but they don't hear much information regarding it. What are you seeing?
So, sex trafficking between the United States and Canada, and between Mexico and the United States as well, is a significant issue. And it is one of the real focus areas of our Customs and Border Protection personnel who are the first line of defense, of defending the United States, and probably one of the least known and appreciated law enforcement agencies in the United States. And the biggest issues that we have there with Canada relate to information sharing and cooperation between our multiple levels of law enforcement in both Canada and the United States. And one of the real barriers to full cooperation, maybe the way the United States would like to see it, is the heightened privacy rules and regulations that exist in Canada as opposed to the United States.
And those are protecting sex traffickers.
Correct. And that of course, is our argument. But in full respect, I mean, Canada has made certain judgments. Now, these are changing, and there is legislation that is being proposed, that is being considered, that would make quite clear about, at least if I would call it, a lesser level of privacy protections that a convicted sex offender, I'm not talking about people accused of being sex offenders, but of convicted sex offenders, should be able to have in order to, again, shift some of the burdens here to maybe recognize that a sex offender should not be entitled to the same privacy protections as someone who is not a sex offender. We've also, by the way, had, during my time here, very significant conversations between and among indigenous peoples, provincial leadership, federal Canada leadership around issues of murdered and missing women and indigenous children. Indigenous women and children, which is another form of border control that is very important in both the United States and Canada.
What will be your favorite memory of your time in Canada as you return to the U.S.?
So you know how much I hate that question, because as soon as I answer that with specificity, there are the 50 other incredibly fantastic memories who will say, what about us? Why isn't that the favorite memory? But I will say that I've sort of said this, that my most inspirational day, my most inspirational visit was to Gander on September 11th. It is a day I will never forget. And of course, it also is a day that just typifies the Canada-U.S. relationship and the goodness of the Canadian people and the friendship on which our relationship is based. And it was my first direct exposure to the quality of this relationship between Canada and the United States and the essential goodness of the Canadian people.
Ambassador David Cohen, we have so enjoyed your tenure here in our many interviews. We hope to continue to speak to you as you return to the United States.
I also have appreciated the respectful way in which you have treated me, and really the absolute volume of your airtime that you have afforded to me to be able to tell the story of this relationship from the United States perspective. It's an essential part of my job as United States ambassador.
Thank you so much for always making time for us.
Great, thank you.